why do we make Batman and Robin Master Warner Brothers? So we can learn to allow something like Batman Begins to be created. So today we're going to be talking about...
I thought you were going to be Michael Caine for this old episode.
So today we're going to be talking about Batman Begins and why that was such an important movie to the Batman franchise and to kickstart this new wave of elevation of the comic book movie genre to just being a good movie.
I don't think it's just important to Warner Brothers. I think it's important to... I can't do that.
You need subtitles, right? But what you don't need is Tenet sound mixer.
I think it's important cinema.
Yeah. No.
Batman trilogy.
I wholeheartely agree. Now, here's, like, that's the thing, right? Like, we talked about how Batman and Robin effectively killed the franchise. It took the studio and it took their approach to Batman and going like, holy shit, we need to do something so different with this property, such a safe, marketable property, and really kind of go left of center with it.
And this is not just us in the darkness, it's a stylistic choice because Batman Begins came out of the darkness.
Of course! You can't have Batman Begins in broad daylight.
The darkness that Joel Schumacher cast upon the world.
With his overtly, comical and goofy look. Like, look, again, like I said, like, as much as I talk about Batman and Robin with a sense of childish nostalgia, you know what? It was a bad movie, right? Like, that's a no-nonsense fact. Now, Batman Begins was one of those cases where the studio was so desperately trying to do something different with the property, because obviously Batman is a very safe property, but they were like, we kind of not need to remind anyone of the Schumacher days. And so they sort of looking for a director.
And they kind of took their chance on this relatively new director.
Yeah, he didn't really have much under his belt. Mr. Christopher Nolan himself. They, sought him out, actually, and asked him to do a Batman movie. And funnily enough, Christopher Nolan was kind of a bit more like, okay, fine, I guess I'll do it, I guess I'll do your Batman film. But really, ultimately, it was so he could, get in with Warner Brothers, so he could make his dream film, Inception. Mm-hmm. So, Batman Begins, let's really break it down, like...
So I watched it in cinemas.
The first time I watched Batman Begins was off a shitty pirated copy that my dad got from some guy at a train station. Not my fault, I didn't buy the CD, okay? And so, like, I found it really weird because that's the thing. It was a really dark movie, so it was really hard to make out the details from a bloody pirated rip. It was really hard to see, mate.
It straight away stood out because I feel it was kind of the first time that a comic book movie, I guess, was genuinely took on a darker, not just like visually, but also narratively, and it also had this additional sense of realism.
Yeah, it was very grounded. Yeah. And considering
nothing really fantastical, you didn't really have to suspend disbelief that much to believe that this could take place in a real, real world.
Well, he was working with very, like he had, what's his name? David Goyer on as his story/screenplay writer, a co-writer. And like, even you look at the characters that were involved. So obviously Batman is I'd say a relatively grounded character in terms of he's got no powers. It's all about the money, which is a very important power. But then even you look
Starting route to 64.
Don't interrupt, Siri. Even if you talk about the villains he incorporated, he took characters like Scarecrow and really amped up the, the psychological.
Murphy was fucking amazing.
What a brilliant performance. Great casting as well. Like, he's a very charming looking guy, but wow, what a sinister, really psychotic look to him. I thought what he did with Ra's al Ghul was really smart. In that everyone's so used to this idea of, Ra's al Ghul about reincarnation in the Lazarus Pit and he comes back. But that twist I thought was amazing. This idea of immortality and sort of Ra's al Ghul almost as a title being passed down. That was, I thought, a really well done take on the source material.
Was great as well.
Liam Neeson was great. Like,
this is where you can jump in and go, imagine his cock. Because rumors are that Liam Neeson's got a monster cock.
What?
Yeah.
Well, I never heard of those rumors before, but...
Janice Dickinson described it as when he took it out, she thought a water bottle fell out of his pants.
No, that is an Irish treasure, I tell you. Oh my god, that's really bizarre. I bet you didn't know that because I sure as hell didn't know that.
Fun fact, interview with Janice Dickinson.
Who is that?
She used to be one of the like top models. They said
wow.
smallest cock she's ever seen. That you wouldn't expect. It was Mick Jagger. And
that's why he danced so much.
Apparently it didn't matter to him, you know, like he's probably got more pussy than anyone else. And like biggest monster cock was Liam Neeson.
Oh my god. Well, you know, the cock of the Irish, I tell you. Anyway, besides the point, wow, that's okay. What a segue, but you know, really informative here. Now, look, Batman Begins at its core, I think, was a really good beginning. You know.
All right.
What? What's with the chuckle?
Batman Begins was a good beginning. All right, anyway, go on.
Oh, all right, whatever. You know, the title, like.
He likes this kind of blatant shit sometimes. You know, he's taking a bit far with like the protagonist, but.
Yeah, you know, like with Ted and all that. But Batman Begins, I think, you know, like it is what it is. Look, I think. In the realm of origin stories, it's really coherent. It really gives you a good sense of the character. It does usher in this sense of a new take on Batman. At its core, though, I do still think that it didn't excel as far as things like The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises, which we will touch upon, because I personally find... Not on rewatch. I'm obviously, you know, retrospectively, because you hadn't seen those other films. So that was like the greatest thing that had been done to Batman in live action, I think, for a while. But you know what I will say,
it made Batman cool again.
Yeah, I mean, Batman became a fucking and serious, you know, like
and not in a childish way. Like even the vehicles took on like a more real world, like
the Rumbler
sort of, yeah,
the Tumbler, the Rumbler, I forgot, but like what a cool approach that you go like, well, fuck, it's a tank. That's how it can withstand all these explosions and all that shit.
Mean, when I saw it the first time, I was like, there was two things I took away from Batman Begins. I want a Rumbler, and where'd you get them blue flowers, mate?
Blue flowers? Oh, the blue flowers from the mountains.
I never go one of those.
Well, you know, like, yeah, so that's the thing, you know, like even the psychoactive element to Scarecrow is, I mean, if you've ever done LSD or minor enhancing drugs, like, it's really not a far stretch. A hit of DMT will give you a Scarecrow sensation.
Christian Bale also got fucking jacked for Batman Begins.
It's like, Batman, not Fat Man.
Yeah, but he was huge, dude. Like,
oh no, he was an absolute monster.
That was one of the first times that, you know, granted, because if you take a look at the first few X-Men's.
Oh, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine versus Hugh Jackman as Wolverine in, you know, X-Men Origins or even The Wolverine.
Yeah, like, but like the first Wolverine, you're like,
keep in mind, Batman Begins came out in 2005. This was still fairly early days for the comic book movie genre.
Origins out yet?
No, I don't think so. The first X-Men came out, what, 2000, then 2002, then X3 about 2004 or something.
Yeah, and Hugh Jackman still had a relative, like, you know, regular guy body.
Well, all right, let's draw it back to Batman Begins, yeah? Like, because I do want to mention this one thing. I personally find with the take of the superhero genre, which I can't pin too much on Nolan and the studio on this because they did want to kind of reboot it. I don't think that Origins movies can really excel as a movie to its full potential. I think one of the best first comic book movies, which we would definitely do an episode about, is actually Blade. Because it throws you into the character without having to do all this backstory and setup. Because whether you're familiar with the character or not, and I think a lot of people are familiar with the Batman character and his origins, it's like, how many times do we have to see Martha Wayne freaking die? You know, that was a little bit of my thing with Batman vs Superman, where I'm like, oh, the pearls again. But beside the point, look, I thought Batman Begins was a really well done reboot. The studio seemed to need to be really desperate.
They took a chance. They really took a chance.
Well, you know what? They had to take a chance because they completely screwed the pooch on the last one.
And look at the casting. Like,
wrapping it up.
Michael Caine as fucking Alfred.
What an all-star casting. Like, really casting for talent and acting performance rather than just namesake, you know? I think even Cillian Murphy was not huge at the time. It was pretty big in some British things, but...
Yep. So, in summary, I want to say, like, Batman Begins, amazing, really, really important film that began so many other things,
but still, you know what, ultimately I would still place Batman Begins really objectively as a great comic book film.
Yeah, still a comic book film.
It is only in the next episode that we talk about the film,
shadowed by what came after.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Out of 5 stars,
you can go bust it.
No, I can't, there's no space.
Fine. Out of 5 stars, I'm gonna give it being really objective, I'm gonna give it a Oh, we'll hit the 10-minute mark. I'm gonna give it a 3.8 to 4.
I'll give it a 3.9.
Okay. All right. So there you go.
Oh, Batman!